Fear stops us from achieving our true greatness. Are you a professional woman who is feeling stuck, unmotivated, or burned out? Are you worried about your wellness? Are you letting fear stop you from crushing your goals? If you answered yes to any or all of these, then this is the podcast for you. Dr. Charmaine Gregory, night shift emergency physician, burnout thriver, and wellness champion, along with everyday heroes just like you, will explore how to face fear in our lives and emerge victoriously.
Hey, thanks for checking out this episode. Be sure to click the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you get notified when the next video comes out. It only takes 2 seconds to make 2 clicks. So let's do it. Let's get back to the video. Hello, Fearless Freedom Tribe. Welcome to another week of amazing opportunities to face your fear and emerge victoriously. Today, we have the pleasure of having Ty Belknap on our show. And Ty, you're going to tell us all about who you are and what you are up to.
Awesome, Charmaine. Really glad to be here.
Awesome. Yeah. We're dying to find out who you are, what makes you tick, like what you're up to. So let them have it.
I'm a simple person. So what would you like to know?
So what's your story? Because everybody's got a backstory, right?
I actually have quite a background. So it all depends on where you want to start. We could start with when I lived on the streets of Seattle as a teenager, which was a very difficult time of my life. Or we could start with me being a scuba dive master and beach bum in Hawaii, which was much more fun than living on the streets. There's all sorts of places. I've lived several different lives, I would say. From being, I even went from a beach bum to being a techie nerd, and now I run an online marketing company. So there's a whole lot we could go towards. What would you be interested in starting with?
Well, you know what? We talk about fear on this show, and I cannot imagine anything more fearful than actually being a youth living on the streets. So how about we start there?
Living on the streets for any adult is extremely difficult. For teenagers, almost impossible. It really is. I can't tell you how many of my friends didn't make it. It was a very difficult time. I can't tell you exactly. I don't know if I'll get into exactly how I found or I got there, but being on the streets was very tough, and it's tough to explain even. And I like how you talked about fear, because that really is your life when you live on the streets. That's everything. And that was a huge thing for me to overcome. Even after I moved off of the streets, I still had that fear, that street kid fear, that anything and everything can be taken from you at any given time. Even if you have nothing, what you do have could be taken from you at any time. During the period of time when I lived on the streets, there were no youth services at all. There were a lot of street gangs in the area that I lived, and so they would roam around and they would beat up street people all the time. That doesn't happen quite so much anymore that I know of, but it was a really rough time. That was back in the late 80s that I was on the streets. And like I said, even when I got off the streets, I moved to Hawaii. There was a great opportunity, of course, much better place to live than the cold streets of Seattle. But I still had that fear inside of me of being a street kid. And I started, I believe, either 3 or 4 different businesses in Hawaii and failed at all of them very quickly, mostly because I didn't believe that I could make it. That's another thing when you live on the streets is you have no self-confidence. You have no belief in yourself, and there's no one around you that believes in you either, because every person around you doesn't believe in themselves. And so there's no support network at all. It was a very difficult thing to overcome, and it took quite a lot of changing, of directly wanting to change my mindset from a mindset of fear to a mindset of positive expectation. And it took several years for me to be able to do that.
How did you do that? Because that is something that isn't innate, I would say. Usually when people are going through evolution in their personal development like that, they come across a mentor, or they have a particular failure that prompts them to look to change in that particular area, and then it leads to the next personal development growth, and the next and the next. So how did that look for you? Like, how did you go from not having the confidence to then getting to the place where you felt like, okay, there's no need to really be afraid anymore. There's not physical danger like there was when I was back in Seattle. There is only the mental danger of me thinking that I can't do it. Like, how do we get there?
My first mentor, interesting that you say that, because I really think of this person as a mentor. There was one day when I was walking down the street and there was a very old man, a homeless man, sitting on the side of a building. And he must have been at least 40 or 50, you know.
That's old back then, right?
Yeah, back when you're 16 years old, 40.
Right.
I mean, he had to have looked like he was 80 or 90, though. He lived on the streets his whole life. And I sat down next to him and he asked me for money, and I laughed at him and I said, "Do I look like I have any money?" And he actually gave me a couple of dollars, and he said, "You know, life really sucks. Go get something to eat." This is my mentor. Because two things. One, he gave me the money. He showed me this generosity, and he didn't have a lot of money. So there's this generosity there, even though he had nothing. But what really makes me say that he was my mentor is I took a really hard look at him and I said, if I don't change, this is going to be me. I have to get out of here. And the fear of staying on the streets got even worse than the fear of not being on the streets, you know, or the fear of the situation. And so that's when I really started working hard about at least physically changing, you know, where I was. The mental changes were more difficult. Like I said, I not grew up, but my teenage years were on the streets. And so I didn't understand the mental ways, or how important it is to have a positive mental attitude, how important it is to have that kind of thing. I knew nothing about any of that. And I don't remember exactly when I first started learning it. I started listening to cassette tapes. That was back when those were around.
I remember those.
Okay. I started listening to the cassette tapes by Zig Ziglar and some other positive motivational people. And that started helping me to see what I was doing. But even today, there are times where something will happen that is not necessarily the most positive thing, and I still have to battle that street kid attitude of, well, of course it's not happening right because I'm not good enough. Even yesterday, I was listening to something and that popped into my head, and I have to battle that and say, well, of course I'm good enough. Why wouldn't I be? You know, I'm here, I'm alive, I've got all these great things. I tell people today, it's as impossible as it was to live on the streets of Seattle. I was rich, because the average kid in India doesn't even own a pair of shoes, and I had 2 pairs of clothes. So compared to a kid in India, I'm rich. You know, I tell people, yeah, sometimes I did actually eat out of garbage cans, but these are the garbage cans of 5-star restaurants. Kids in India are eating out of dumps. So you take a look at your situation and you realize how much worse it could be compared to what it is now. But also, and this was, to me, the big thing was starting to really visualize a future for myself. And a lot of people talk about visualizing what you want. You know, I want to be a millionaire, so visualize being a millionaire. But if you don't believe that you can be a millionaire, visualizing it all you want won't help. And so you need to visualize something that you believe that at some point you could actually achieve. And visualizing having money really, to me, isn't the best visualization anyway, because you want something that's strong that pulls you. And I'd rather visualize having the house that I want, having the car that I want, having the feelings, being filled with joy in my life, even when maybe happiness isn't there. So I'm always filled with joy in my life now, whether things go right or wrong. And so to me, those are much more important than saying having a certain amount of money. And of course, money is good, but you think about it, money in itself doesn't really do much. It doesn't even burn that well. It's the things that money can buy that you really want.
Oh yes, no, this is so true. And so you touched on quite a few things there because yes, your mindset is the thing that is the most powerful, but you are absolutely, absolutely right when you say that. Just visualizing something pretty abstract like I want to be a billionaire, that is not really the thing that's going to activate the why you want that, right?
Mhm.
Because, like you said, you have to have something that is deeply emotional that's going to be able to pull you out of the pit when you've fallen in and you're like, okay, I'm going to throw the towel now. You need something that's going to just cause you not to stop. Okay.
Mhm.
Because I'm going to say that, we all fail, right? This is something quote unquote fail, even though I don't believe in failure, because
Right.
to me, when you don't do well at something or you quote unquote, fail at it or whatever they want to term it, you still
Mhm.
are getting a lesson from it. And that thing is going to help you to be a better person. So, failing forward, I guess, is a better way to put it, because then that way you know that you're always going to be making progress even if that thing that you tried doesn't work. So in business, I'm sure you've seen this, like for example, you even mentioned this, that you tried several businesses when you first went to Hawaii,
Mhm.
and they were not quote unquote successful, maybe, but they were, though, because they gave you the experience that allowed for you to be where you are today, I'm sure. Like,
Yeah.
even if it wasn't physical, like even if it wasn't like a tangible thing, like maybe you were selling something and
Mhm.
nobody bought them, right? But then what you learn from that is you have to talk to people and you have to be able to relate to people in order to be able to get them to trust you, in order for them to be able to buy something from you, right? Or
Yeah.
you may have learned that, I'm just like speculating what the things that you may have learned, but you may have learned that, maybe the thing that you were trying to offer did not serve the pain point of the people you were offering it to, right? And so,
Mhm.
there's so many things that you can learn from not quote unquote being successful at something, right? And
Yeah.
so the same thing is true when you're looking at when you're visualizing. And I love that you use the word visualizing, because that is the thing that is the most powerful. Because
Yeah.
if you can utilize your mind and tap into the power that it has, and you can literally, say, for example, you can see yourself on, and I'm going to be sharing one of my visions now. You can see yourself on a veranda of a AMA waterway ship, boat, I guess. Maybe it's not a ship, a boat going down the Danube. Your family's there. You got two suites. You're sitting on the veranda. You are smelling the crisp air because it's fall time, and you're looking and you're seeing the amazing architecture that is lining that river, and you are sipping on some wine that is local fare for that area. If you can visualize what you're wearing, you can visualize what you're tasting, you can visualize what you're smelling, what you're seeing. If you can make it that real, that thing is going to happen. So
Yeah.
that's the difference between saying I want to be a millionaire and saying I want to be able to establish a home for girls in India where I'm going to help young women to be able
Mhm.
to turn their lives around and to get an education so that they can contribute to society and they can make their lives even more elevated and be able to help their villages and help their children and help their families. And I could see the saris that they're wearing, and I could see, and I could smell I could smell the spices of the food that they're cooking in celebration of their success. And I could, you have to make it real. And so I think that's the piece that a lot of people miss. And I'm so glad that you mentioned it, because, it's so easy for people to be like, throw out a goal, right? I mean, I guess these are goals. Throw out a goal, but yet not have that piece, not have it attached to a why, so that they can actually truly visualize what it is like to reach that place where that goal is accomplished. And so if they can't do that, then they can't backtrack, reverse engineer, and then hit all of the small goals that need to be hit in order to achieve the big goal. So you told me this is what you did, right? So that is so important, because there's no way that you can go from. So the interesting thing that you also told me is that, you were inspired by somebody that, and in a way, it kind of seemed to me like when you sat down next to this gentleman, and I'm assuming he was not dressed to the nines in like a a shark tooth suit or something, and he's sitting on the floor there on the corner of the building, and maybe he hasn't taken a shower in a couple of days, maybe his hair is disheveled, and whatever, and you sat down next to this guy, and he's like looking at you like, hey man, you got money, and I mean, I don't know if he was saying, hey man, you got money, because he wanted to see what your response was, or he was saying, hey man, you got money, so that he could trigger something within you that would maybe say, dude, I'm 16. I don't really want to be like this guy. I don't want to be on the streets when I'm 50. Right. I mean, maybe the guy wasn't 50, but like, you know what I mean? Like maybe he was trying to push you to see that this is not the end. Like that you should want more. And so, it seems like that worked. Right. And then this is the gangster piece. He hits you with the, all right, man, here's a couple bucks, go get some food. Like life, this is not it. Like, he's like, dude, this is not it. You cannot let this be the final stop on your train. Like you have a train that's going places, and you need to get on it and go to those places. And here's a little couple bucks to kind of get you the fuel you need to get going. So that whole story, that whole like, I'm picturing it in my mind as you're describing it. I'm like, okay, I'm totally seeing it. I'm seeing like a red, brick building, and I'm seeing like, I'm seeing the glass doors that are like really close to the edge of the building, and I could see like the reflection of a more mature man sitting down, disheveled, maybe wearing some raggedy clothes, and and he's like sighing, and I see this young kid sitting next to him, and kind of almost reluctantly sitting next to this guy, but something is pulling you there. Something has made you want to sit down next to him and have a conversation. And then this guy drops it. He's like, hey, and you're like, what? And then the next thing he says is, man, you better go live your life. You better get up out of here and go live your life. This right here is not it. And so it is those moments that we have, and that is a pretty dramatic moment. I mean, I don't know what the real backstory is, like even the thing that led you to be on the streets, but it couldn't have been good, right? Nobody like decides to go live on the streets like at that age. So it had to be something very traumatic, something horrible even. And then for you to have survived, and again, I don't know how many years you're out there, but like, I can't even imagine like a couple of weeks out there, or even like, a few days out there. But it sounded like you were out there for more than a few days, and maybe even more than a few weeks. Sounded like you were out there for quite a while.
Couple years.
And so, these couple years. And so now this is like a whole nother level, right? Because now you are like in a situation where you're not getting the structure, even a dysfunctional family provides structure and some form of security, right? And so you don't have that. you are forced then to, basically monitor yourself, right? Do things and provide for yourself the things that someone who is more experienced would be providing for you. And then you are having to make adult-sized decisions in the mind of, I just finished being a child mind. There are so many layers to that, right? You face fear on a daily basis on the streets, right? You face fear every time you close your eyes on the street. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I never lived on the streets, but I can just imagine, right?
Yeah.
Because you said it. You said, even when you have nothing, someone can come and take your nothing from you.
Yeah.
So, that right there, that is the ultimate in training as far as facing your fear and having the tools, even though you didn't realize it until years later, to have success. And so now
I agree with that.
You even mentioned it. Like, you even said it. You said yesterday you had a thought that came into your mind. And that thought was, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough for this. Right. But what happened is the years of initially listening to Zig Ziglar's tapes, and then, all the other things that you did to train your mind, those are the things that allowed for you to, number one, recognize that you were having a fearful thought. And then number two, understanding that you acknowledge a thought and then you escape it. Like you say, no, I'm not going to let that one determine what my next steps are. So to me, that's like another level of facing fear, because, that's the thing that drives you, right? That's the thing that drives you forward. That's the thing that drives you to success. And, it's huge. People spend years and years and years and years and never get that level of, I want to say, I don't know how I would describe it, but like fear-facing maturity. That's what I'm going to call it. Okay. So fear-facing maturity.
I like that.
And so, I say kudos to you.
Thank you.
Because that is a huge lesson, right? And the people who are listening to this, if they're not encouraged, then something's wrong. Fearless Freedom Tribe, if you're listening to Ty's story and you're not encouraged, and shame on you, right? Because check it out. You have no excuse, right? You have absolutely no excuse. Oh, I'm afraid to try to learn something new. Oh my gosh. Why are you afraid of that? Is it something that is going to be physically dangerous to you? Do you feel like when you close your eyes, someone can come by and take away your nothing? Do you have that? No. So Ty has now proved that you have no excuse. No excuse.
I love to, I coach homeless teens a lot, and I like to do it in a bit of a more organized thing, because I like to have the organizer say, this person lived on the streets as they were a teenager, and now I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Ty Belknap. And so I like them to see that where they are is not where they have to stay. And it doesn't matter whether you're on the streets or not. I graduated high school with a 1.89 GPA. I graduated my doctorate with a 3.99 GPA. And so it literally, where you are does not have to be where your life is going to be in 10 years or even 1 year. It all depends on, and I'm not saying that maybe it will physically change, but you have to change your mind before you change your location. You have to get it right in your head. That's why the biggest thing I say now, especially when those fears come up, I literally tell myself, that's the old you. That's not the person you are anymore. The person you are now is this, and I'll say something positive about myself. And that reminds me literally that I'm not that person anymore.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, it's Dr. G, and I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank you for listening to this episode. I'm so honored to have you here with me. Did you know that I can help you to get your own podcast started? With my podcasting launch course for professionals, I walk you through everything you need to know about starting a podcast. I'm with you every step of the way, from sign up to launching your show, with 5 episodes ready to go. There's a done for you version that's also available. If you would just rather just do recordings and leave the behind the scenes work up to us, then that one is definitely for you. But either way, we've got your back here at Fearless Freedom with Dr. G. Oh, if you already have a show and you need production services, we have monthly plans available for you. So check out the links in the episode show notes for more information. Let's get back to the show. So now you got to tell us. So we heard about the tumultuous past, right? And then we also heard that we heard you say that you were in Hawaii and you tried several things, and then you had your personal development breakthrough while you were there. Now we need to know, how did you get then to the success that you are currently?
Well, in Hawaii, like I said, I say that I failed at several businesses, and in a way that I did because I truly believe the only way you can fail is by quitting, and I quit them. Not necessarily that I didn't take the information to do things better later, but if I truly believe if I would have stuck at it and learned more, then I would have been a success at those businesses. And I did definitely, you learn more from failure than you do from success. So I did learn quite a lot. But after being in Hawaii for 5 years, I lived there for 5 years, and I like to explore. And so Hawaii is a beautiful place, but the island I lived on was literally 50 miles. That's how far you can drive. That's it. and if you want snow, you're in the wrong place. And so I moved back to the Pacific Northwest, a different area. I didn't live in Seattle. A lot of bad memories were from there. So I chose a different area. And I got into the technology field. I actually started selling computers, and I got offered the job and I took it. And the funny thing was, in the back of my mind, it's like, I'm not a salesman. I don't even know how to sell. And I was still getting over that self-confidence thing. My self-confidence was getting a little bit better, but I just knew in the back of my mind I wasn't good at sales. And your mind will accomplish whatever you think about the most. So I just proved that I wasn't good at sales for the next 3 years. But what I did learn was that I loved working on computers. And I love the technology side of it. And so I actually became a network engineer. I worked at Microsoft and Hewlett Packard and Compaq when it was still around. And the last time I worked at Microsoft, they were doing their first round of layoffs. And I didn't really enjoy working at Microsoft too much. It's a tough, or it's much easier now. Back then, it was a tough company to work for. They were very demanding. And so I asked my boss to lay me off, started my own business. My first year in business, I literally made 10% of what I made my last year at Microsoft. and I got to the point where after the first year, I said, here I am failing again. But by then I've been working on my mental attitude and everything. And that's when I had started to say, no, that's the old me. What's the new me gonna do about this? Because this is what I want to do. I love doing what I'm doing. At that time, I was a web design company. Now I do online marketing and web design. But I said, what am I going to do if I fail here? I have to go back and get a job and work for somebody else. So to me, at that point, failure was not an option. So I started learning. Like I said, at that time, all I did was web design. I didn't know marketing. I didn't know how to sell still. So I took sales classes. I took marketing classes. I found out that I'm kind of good at that, which is why we're a marketing company now. I found out the things that I'm not good at, like bookkeeping. So I hired a bookkeeper. And that's what I tell people that are in small business. Yeah, when you first start, you've got to wear every hat. Yes. But define, But define each hat that you wear and figure out which hats you don't want to wear. The ones you don't want to wear the most, as soon as you get enough money, hire someone to do that hat, whether it's part-time or whatever it is. Take that off your plate. Concentrate on the things that you love to do, Let other people do the things that you don't love to do, and you will have a successful business.
This is so true. Oh man, there's so many lessons there. Oh my goodness. Like, and I'm kind of having my own flashbacks because I've had a few businesses over the years, and that is so, so true. You know, in the beginning, you definitely are doing every single thing. And you kind of get to a point where you almost have, I mean, I don't know if you did this, but like you kind of have a little bit of a control freak attitude because you're just kind of like, okay, well, I know if I do it, it's going to get done. And, you know, you start not to trust other people. But the moment you like let go of that foolishness, right? Because it's foolishness. The moment you let go of that foolishness and you actually hire it out and you get people who are actually good at the thing doing it, oh my goodness, it's like leaps and bounds. Like there's no comparison to that.
Right. And that's the point where you stop being a solopreneur and start being a business owner. When you start letting go, you will always be a solopreneur if you don't let that go. And it's scary because you're giving someone else. I mean, I was giving someone else control of my money, and not that they had control of the accounts, but they had control of all the balance sheets, the bookkeeping, and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that was very scary for me because I'm sorry, when I lived on the streets, what was the most important thing? Money. Well, food. But
right. But I mean, one leads to another, right? So
yeah, exactly. And so, giving up control of that was very difficult for me. It took me a while to do that. I think I was in business for 2 or 3 years before I did that. And I could afford it. One thing I didn't say, so my first year I did 10%. I realized my mindset wasn't right. I changed my mindset. I changed the way that I wanted to do business. My second year, I made almost as much money as I did my last year at Microsoft.
Oh, fantastic.
And,
yeah.
And so, it's all, that's what I say. It's all about your mindset. And you can, not that it's about money, but you can make more money by having a more positive mindset and believing that you can do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, there's a whole like thing about mindset around money and, you know, having a mentality of abundance versus that of scarcity that is very powerful too. So yeah, no, that's fantastic. Wow. So now you got to tell us, now that we kind of know more about you, Ty, right? You got to tell us what is it that what your company is, right? Because the Fearless Tribe wants to know that. And then what do you offer?
I run an online marketing company now. We do web design, search engine optimization. We help small businesses get found on the internet. And I'm so glad that Google is doing this. I'm a huge techie nerd. I mean, if it's techie stuff, I do it and I love it. And I'm a huge introvert as well. So I work alone in my office, actually. We have 4 employees. The other 3 people that work for the company, the closest one is 4,000 miles away. They live in England. Okay. And so I'm in Seattle, Washington, or Seattle area. And so all of my employees are remote. And so I work in my office alone 12 hours a day and just burn through work and just love it. But yeah, so we do online marketing, search engine optimization. And I like really learning all the stuff that Google does to change things. They had, we're in October right now. Back in June and July of 2021, depending upon when someone listens to this, Google made a change that to me is the biggest and best change that they've ever done in the history of their search engine. It was called their page experience update. And the whole premise of it, and this is step 1, the whole premise of it is to help local businesses get higher in the search engines than national businesses. And so, like, for instance, if you want to buy Nike shoes, you type in Nike shoes, what happens? It pops up the Nike website. Well, what Google wants to do is to pop up local stores that carry Nike shoes first. You'll still see the Nike website, but wait, they want the local stores first because they've actually found out that when people use their search engine, more than half of the searches are for local stuff. Right. Especially when you think about it, if you're on your phone and you're saying, Google, where can I find a restaurant, a store, or something like that? You're not looking for a restaurant 10,000 miles away from you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
that is great.
Yeah. And so that's the big thing that we do is we help the local companies get their websites higher in the search engine so that they can be found by local customers.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. And then, so tell us the name of the company and how they can get in
Oh,
contact with you.
the company is Port Bell. You just go to portbell.com,
And that's
or you
P-O-R-T.
can, yeah,
Just because in case of, yeah.
Port.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was going to say, if you have a small website yourself and you're wondering, because here's the big thing is, even before you work on the optimization and the marketing for your website, you want to make sure that it's ready for that. So I created a workbook, and that's at TYS freebook.com. It's a workbook you can go to yourself, and you can go through the steps to find out how well your website is actually doing for the search engines before you even do any marketing.
Oh, that's great. That's very useful.
Thank you.
Awesome. So they can find your company at Port Bell. So PORTBELL.com, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
And then the tool that you're offering is a Ties free book, right? TYSFREEBOOK.com.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I like to say it out because the thing about it is that people might be listening to this in different modalities, right? They could be like someplace where they could look at the show notes, which is where this is going to also be, but they could also be someplace where they're not able to, and they can like jot it down real quick. So that's why I was asking you to spell it out. Cool.
Okay.
All right. So this has been such a great conversation, Ty. I think that we are at that point in the show where we do our tradition. Are you ready? You ready for our fill in the blank tradition?
Sure.
Okay. Yay. All right. I was hoping he'd say yes. All right. So here we go. So the first one is, to me, fearless freedom means.
To me, fearless freedom means that you face your fears, because I don't think that there's any way to not have fear. But when you face them head on, you realize that your fears are not usually the size of a lion, they're the size of a mouse.
Nice. That's a good one.
Thank you.
I love how you like weaved in facing fear. I'm like, oh, yes. The next one is, if I am fearless, I will
do anything my mind can be set on.
Sweet. And then last but not least is, my battle cry is.
I thought about that one before too, and I guess I stumble on it because I have more than one.
Okay, you can share more than one. That's totally fine.
But I'm trying to think of the best one. My battle cry really is, you can do it. Because you can do whatever your mind thinks about the most, whether it's negative or positive. So if your mind says I'm not good enough, or if you say I'm not good enough to your mind, then your mind is going to go, great, I'm not good enough. Let's work on that. Or if you say I am good enough and I can do this, your mind's going to say, great, I am good enough. We can do this. Let's work on that. So that's what I say. You can do it. That would be my best battle cry for this.
I love it. Yay. That was awesome. That was really awesome. Yeah. So I am so appreciative that you took time out of your busy afternoon, because you said it was like 1 o'clock your time. Yeah. To spend time with the Fearless Tribe. We definitely appreciate you. And we love that you were open about sharing your story, because I am absolutely positive that not only did I learn from it, but I know that those listening have also learned from your story. So, that is where we make our most impact, when we tell our story and we share how we have been tested, because that is a testimony that will help somebody else, right? That's how we put it forward. So I thank you for that.
Charmaine. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Awesome. So thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. And please let your tribe know, if anyone wants to contact me, they go to portbell.com, just click on the contact button. It doesn't have to be about business. If they just want to contact me, that'd be awesome too.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Fearless Freedom with Dr. G. Again, I'm Dr. G. And if you like this episode, be sure to subscribe so that you can get notified of when the next episode is going to be. And also, I'll catch you next time. Have a great one. Be strong, be brave, and unleash your greatness.